Some whispers are heard, much closer loneliness. You think you get used to it after a while, but is getting used to it just about forgetting? Or is it about waiting? I was questioning this more than ever. I was 60 years old. I had spent most of my life building happiness for others. I lost my husband years ago, but the real loneliness didn't start when he left. Sometimes, even while you're still living, you can feel abandoned. I'd been alone in this house for a long time. The doors had closed, and so had my heart. But some doors crack open at the most unexpected moments. That day was just an ordinary day, or at least that's what I thought. Looking back now, I ask myself, was that night really a mistake? Or was it the truth I had been burying inside me for years, finally coming to light? When my phone rang, I was sitting on the porch, watching the sun go down. The battle between the bright lights and the shadows blended together, just like the turmoil inside me. When I looked at the screen, I saw my grandson Caleb's name. Strange. I loved him, but we had never been particularly close. He was young, living his own life. He didn't call often. I answered. His voice was rushed, but there was something else, something tense. Grandma, we're nearby. The car broke down. I'm with D'Angelo. Can we come over? For a second, I froze. D'Angelo. I didn't know why that name hit me the way it did. But the moment I heard it, a familiar, long-buried feeling locked me in place. I thought for a few seconds, and in those few seconds something shifted. Of course, Caleb, come right over. When I hung up, my hand instinctively went to my chest. My heart. Why was it beating so fast? I had seen Caleb's friend D'Angelo a few times before. Tall, strong, impossible to ignore. Charismatic, dark-skinned, a man who carried an undeniable presence. He had always been polite, always respectful. But sometimes those eyes, there was something in them, something I couldn't name, something I hadn't seen in a man in years. And now those same eyes were about to be under my roof when I greeted them at the door. Caleb was his usual careless, energetic self, but D'Angelo, he was quiet. He was the kind of man who spoke with his eyes. Laura, how are you? Carl, he asked, his deep voice washing over me. I'm fine, I said, but my voice had a strange tremble to it. I don't know if D'Angelo noticed, but the small smile on his lips told me he missed nothing. They stepped inside. Caleb was chatting about something, but my mind was locked on the man standing in front of me. D'Angelo didn't feel like just Caleb's friend. He felt like something more. Did he know it? I wasn't sure. But one thing was certain. He hadn't come here just because of a broken down car. And I wasn't sure what that meant yet. But when I figured it out, I knew there would be no turning back that night. As the hours dragged on, the house was swallowed by silence. I was in bed trying to sleep, but my mind was just as restless as my heart. D'Angelo was here, and I was losing control over the forbidden feeling growing inside me. Something I had buried for years, forgotten, thought was dead, was breathing again beneath the ashes. I threw the blanket off me. The air wasn't warm, but I was burning. Maybe from loneliness, maybe from those eyes, or maybe just from not being seen for so many years. I got up quietly and went to the kitchen. I needed a glass of water, or at least that's what I told myself. But when I stepped into the kitchen, I saw him. If this is your first time hearing a confession like this, and you want to support us, join my channel and turn on notifications. Before we continue, trust me, you won't want this story to end. D'Angelo was leaning against the counter. He was wearing nothing but a gray t-shirt and pajama shorts that reached his knees. His arms were pressing against the fabric of his shirt, his skin almost glowing under the dim light. Look away, look away, look away. But I didn't, and neither did he. Couldn't sleep, he asked, his voice low and smooth. I guess I'm not used to having people in the house, I said. I wasn't even sure if my voice sounded normal. D'Angelo gave a small smile, his eyes never leaving me. Getting too used to loneliness can be dangerous, Laura. I gripped my glass tighter. Were my hands shaking? I know, I whispered. Silence. But the air was filled with unspoken words. He didn't speak. Neither did I, but my body leaned toward him before I even realized it. It was like the air between us had thickened, like gravity itself was pulling us closer. D'Angelo placed his glass on the counter, his fingers tracing the rim as his eyes stayed locked on mine. Laura. There was a warning in his voice, a hesitation, but he didn't step back. And me? As I looked into his eyes, I took another step forward. Our shoulders were almost touching. I could smell him. His skin was warm. My heart was pounding like crazy. D'Angelo lifted his hand just a few inches, but even that left me breathless. Was he going to come closer? Was he going to touch me? If he did, if this started, there would be no turning back. I closed my eyes. A storm erupted inside me. But just then, a creaking sound came from upstairs. I jerked back as if I had been struck. D'Angelo straightened immediately, his eyes snapping upward. Caleb, he whispered. What were we doing? Our eyes met. The charged silence between us from a second ago had been sliced clean. I had to say something, but I didn't. I just turned around and went back to my room. When morning came, I sat up in bed, still tangled in my own confusion. I didn't want to think about last night, but I couldn't erase the moment from my mind. The house was quiet. I walked to Caleb's room, but his bed was untouched. He was gone. Somewhere deep inside me, in the farthest corner of my heart, a decision was made. My feet started moving on their own. I knew exactly where I was going. I pushed open Angelo's bedroom door. Light spilled into the room, and Angelo's eyes fluttered open. His face was buried in the pillow, still half asleep. But the moment he saw me, he was wide awake. My voice came out calmer than I expected. Caleb's gone, D'Angelo. In that instant, his eyes fully opened. And in that instant, I knew I had crossed the point of no return. For a few seconds, silence filled the room. D'Angelo rubbed his eyes, then reached for his phone on the nightstand. Caleb, he murmured as he opened a message. His eyes scanned the screen, then flicked back to me. What does it sell? I asked, my heart pounding. D'Angelo raised an eyebrow and turned the phone toward me. Went to visit a friend, said he'll be back in the afternoon. Didn't want to wake me up. I tore my gaze away from the screen and looked at him. In that moment, we were both thinking the same thing. Right now, we were alone in the house. D'Angelo set his phone back down, his eyes still on me. He slowly sat up in bed, looking straight at me. You know, Laura, he said in a low voice, I've noticed you before, but now, being here like this, I'm realizing it's even harder to hide what I feel. My eyes studied his face. There was an honesty in his gaze, unapologetic bare. Do you want to tell me what you feel? I asked, my voice coming out softer than I expected. D'Angelo tilted his head slightly, eyes dropping to the floor as he bit his lip. Then his gaze found mine again. I can't even explain the pull I feel toward you, despite our age difference, he said. Something inside me shifted, unexpected, yet something I had been searching for. You being younger than me should feel inappropriate. I started, but my voice dropped as I finished the sentence, and yet it affected. D'Angelo didn't look away, didn't flinch. There was something burning in his eyes, something I could feel, but couldn't quite name. When you got here yesterday, I watched you fixing the car, I admitted. I saw the oil on your hands, the way your muscles tensed. I didn't want to admit it to myself, but I took a deep breath. I couldn't deny how it made me feel. D'Angelo leaned in slightly, a small smirk playing at his lips at dinner and then, later in the kitchen. I never expected my body to react so fast. He shifted to the edge of the bed, resting his hands on his knees, tilting his head slightly as he looked at me. I thought about last night too, Laura, he said, his voice quieter now. And when I saw you in the kitchen, I felt something shift, even if just for a moment. I knew I couldn't see you as just Caleb's grandmother anymore. Something trembled inside me. I was looking at him in a way I never had before, and he was looking at me the same way. I folded my hands in front of me, not as a defense, but as if bracing myself. So what happens now, D'Angelo? I asked. Was that my voice shaking? D'Angelo gave me a slow smile, then lifted his hand, brushing his fingertips against my wrist. This, he murmured. We both know where this is going, don't we? My breath caught, because yes, we did. And this time, I didn't want to pull away. There was a tremble inside me, but not from fear, from excitement. A kind of excitement I hadn't felt in a long time, maybe ever. D'Angelo's eyes were locked onto mine. In that moment, I knew he could feel everything happening inside me. He knew, because he felt it too. Slowly, my hands reached for the belt of my robe. As my fingers loosened the thin fabric, I felt the weight of his gaze settle on me. The knot unraveled. The front of my robe parted slightly, and then, just like that, it slipped off my shoulders, pulling at the edge of the bed. I took a deep breath and, without a second thought, slid onto the bed beside him. His body was warm, his breath close. For the first time, I could fully take in his scent. Clean, young, intoxicating. My hands rested on the sheets, but my body was already being pulled toward him, and I had no intention of pulling back. D'Angelo slowly lifted his hand, his fingertips brushing against my face. Laura, he whispered, his voice dark and inviting. I closed my eyes. His voice wrapped around me like a melody, deep, slow, and impossible to resist. When I opened them again, his face was much closer to mine, and then our lips met at first, slow, exploring. But within seconds, everything we had been holding back poured into that kiss. D'Angelo's hand slid to my waist, pulling me against him. I didn't resist. Why would I? For the first time, I felt wanted. I wanted him. D'Angelo slowly pushed himself up, his body heat pressing closer against my skin. His eyes were locked onto mine, dark, deep, and full of something he was no longer trying to hide. His hand pressed gently at my waist, fingers sliding lower, slower. My breath quickened, my body shifted, instinctively reaching for more. But I didn't even have to move. D'Angelo already wanted me. He leaned in, his presence wrapping around me like a shadow, his gaze never leaving my face. There was something in his eyes, an openness, an unspoken confession, and I was ready for it. I was ready for all of it. When I saw D'Angelo slowly start to lift his hand, I felt something inside me. It was so warm, so intense that for a moment I forgot all my loneliness in the excitement of it. I reacted immediately. D'Angelo, you're perfect. I couldn't even open my eyes. All I could hear was D'Angelo's breathless voice. When I finally did open them, he was showering me with compliments, telling me how beautiful I was. And at that moment, I just watched as the morning sunlight hit his shoulders. I lifted my hands, sliding them down from his shoulders. Then I placed them on his back and pressed gently. Without even realizing it, my nails dug into his skin as I whispered, D'Angelo. I knew from the very beginning that you were the right choice. D'Angelo leaned in, his breath brushing between my ear and neck, his voice low and romantic. "I will never let you feel lonely or ignored again," he said, his movements picking up intensity. I couldn't hold back. I reached for the sheets, gripping them tightly. My entire body trembled violently. My legs tensed, almost as if they were being pushed by an incredible force. What was this? I had never experienced anything like it before. It was unbelievable. I had heard of something like this, but never thought I would actually feel it myself. D'Angelo must have understood. He looked at me. "You reacted like your body was experiencing this for the first time," he said. And with honesty, with shock, with excitement, I admitted, "Yes, D'Angelo, it really was my first time." The moment he heard that, he must have been so overwhelmed that he just let himself go. And then he collapsed right beside me. We lay side by side, our breathing still uneven. My chest rose and fell rapidly as I turned my head to the side. D'Angelo was staring up at the ceiling, but there was a faint smile on his lips. His fingers moved slowly over my arm, as if he were exploring my skin. A moment later, he was the one who broke the silence. He lifted his head slightly, reached for his phone, and checked the time. Then he turned to me, raising an eyebrow, his eyes glinting with mischief. "It's only 12, he said with a sly grin. I narrowed my eyes, trying to suppress the spark inside me, but I failed. And I asked, even though I already knew exactly where he was going with this. D'Angelo tilted his head slightly, his grin widening. "There's still a long way until evening," he whispered. I smiled too. He already had me under his spell. "What exactly are you planning, D'Angelo?" I asked. He propped himself up slightly on his shoulder, reached out, and gently placed his fingers under my chin, tilting my head toward him. "What do you think?" he asked in a low, husky voice, still a little tired, but just as inviting. A laugh escaped me before I could stop it. I placed my hand on his chest and gave him a small push, but he wasn't the type to be fazed by that. He only moved closer. Then suddenly, a thought crept into my mind. "What happens after this, D'Angelo?" I asked. My voice was softer than I expected, but the turmoil inside me was clear as day. In that instant, he grew serious. He looked at me carefully, then slowly ran his hand down my hair, his fingers grazing my cheek. "I don't know," he admitted honestly. "But the only thing I do know is that I don't want to think about it. Right now, I'm here with you, and I need this." A shiver ran through me again. "Good thing our car broke down," D'Angelo whispered with a small, knowing smile. I looked at him. He was right. If the car hadn't broken down, he wouldn't be here. This night, this moment, none of it would have happened. "Do you think this was just a coincidence?" I asked. His eyes locked onto mine. "I don't know, Laura. But the only thing I do know is that I wanted this to happen." A warmth spread inside me. Coincidence or not, it didn't matter anymore. D'Angelo was here, and I felt more alive than I had in years. I didn't want the evening to come. I didn't want Caleb to come back. And I can't wait to tell you just how much further this went. Stay tuned, because this story isn't over. If you've made it this far, I know this story has gotten deep under your skin. There's so much more to share. You won't want to miss it. So hit that follow button, turn on notifications, and drop a comment below.